Jeez, what a mess.
No kidding. Who knew there'd be so much blood?
Blood? Hell, blood stains are bad enough, but what about all this ectoplasm? Nothing's ever gonna get that out of the carpet.
Does this sound like post-ritual clarity at your house? You completed the sacrifice, conjured the demon, and used all your wishes before remembering that somebody was gonna have to clean up. Well, never fear. Introducing Sinister Minutes Carnage Cleaning Services. Here at Sinister Minutes, we specialize on restoring your ritual space to a pristine condition. Blood and gore on the floor? No match for our patented zombie Zamboni. We'll also make sure your furniture and draperies receive just as much attention using our specialized Gorgon stain removing system. Don't put off your demented demonic demands for fear of a big cleaning bill. Call Sinister Minutes Carnage Cleaning today.
I thought this space would never come clean.
It looks amazing. Thanks to Sinister Minutes.
Hand me that axe.
Sinister Minutes is not responsible for the condition of any basement, old cabin, or meat locker associated with this offer. Sinister Minutes does not actually operate nor claim to operate any sort of cleaning service in any state or country, as will be obvious to anyone who visits our personal spaces. If you are deranged enough to purchase any goods or services we advertise, rest assured we will continue to spend your money on personal luxuries for ourselves. Sinister Minutes features tales that include disturbing content. That's intentional because, like the podcast itself, the creators here at Sinister Minutes are really not okay. Now, having said that, realize that content featured on this podcast may include descriptions of some pretty horrific things at times. It is a dark fiction podcast, after all. So we hope that you are anticipating some degree of abuse and blood, of harm and death, of suicide, of sex, of injury, of mutilation, of pain, and certainly some profanity. Maybe a little bit of screaming, occasionally some threats, a bit of torture, a bit of victim blaming. And as always, at some point, we're sure that you're going to encounter some witches. Don't say we didn't warn you. Welcome to Sinister Minutes, Season 2, Episode 10. It's almost canning time. Fresh and ripe, our Sinister Minutes harvest sways back and forth in the breeze. Soon we'll be bringing them all inside. The ones we're not going to use right away, that is. Plunging them into a bath of scalding hot water, peeling off their skins, removing their cores, and cramming them into jars. If things work out well, we may try some similar steps with our tomatoes. Today's story also tucks into the joy of home canning. Guest author K.G. McAbee serves up a tasty treat, a meal for the mind she calls Aunt Clytie's canning jars. K.G. McAbee is multi-published in a variety of genres, but she especially loves horror, no doubt due to her early passion for Boris Karloff and Christopher Lee. She lives in a haunted log cabin in upstate South Carolina and spends too much time reading and drinking iced tea when she really should be writing. Her latest novella is called Hell Below Zero, which may or may not be an homage to John W. Campbell's Who Goes There? Visit her on Substack at Reams of Dreams or Linktree at KGM Writer. We'll include those in the show notes as well. After the story, Tim's got his own special canning techniques, putting music into his own special jars and topping them with a very special sealing agent he calls Ectoplasm 3. Before we delve in, we offer you once more our gratitude for your support, for letting us entertain you, for sharing Sinister Minutes with your friends. If you're just joining us for the first time today, we encourage you to go back and give a listen to the multitude of shows in our vault. Longtime listeners, if you give some of those older shows another listen, we're betting you'll hear some things you missed the first time. As always, a nice rating at Spotify or Apple or Amazon or wherever is always appreciated. Please check out our website at sinisterminutes.com. You can still find us under Sinister Minutes on Blue Sky and YouTube and Facebook, but sinisterminutes.com gives you a place to find links to all the episodes, places to subscribe, some juicy bits about the creators, and, if you've got a story of your own, something with a dark or sinister bent, something you'd like to hear on a future Sinister Minutes episode, well, just visit sinisterminutes.com and fill out the submission form included there. We read every entry, only occasionally jabbing one another in the eye with the erasers. We do that as a reminder to ourselves and everyone around us that, as everyone should know by now, we are not okay. Aunt Clytie's Canning Jars. Written by K.G. McAbee. Narrated by Kurt Homan. Chief? Deputy Carter gave a half-hearted knock on the already open door and walked into the sheriff's office without waiting for a reply.
I hate to bother you, but I think you need to talk to this guy who just walked in.
Sheriff Oscar Williamson looked up from the collection of heaped plates in front of him, sitting in an inverted triangle in the middle of his battered yet tidy desk, directly between the in and out boxes. He chewed and swallowed twice before he managed to say, "Vernon, it is a plumb pity I have to work Christmas Day and miss having dinner at my mama's house. Do I have to deal with every little thing that comes in, too?" Vernon Carter didn't say anything, just eyed the feast spread out in front of his boss. Turkey, jostled ham, sweet potatoes nestled against green beans, and 2 heaped plates held nothing but sweets: orange cake, banana pudding, coconut cake, cherry pie, pumpkin pie. Mrs. Williamson may have had to miss her son's company on Christmas, but she was making mighty damn sure he didn't have to miss her cooking.
Yes, sir. No, sir. It's just, I don't know about this guy. Can you come?
The sheriff carefully spread several paper napkins over the plates and stood up with a grunt. Mrs. Williamson was universally considered the finest cook in Van Buren County, Tennessee, population 5,508, a title to which her son's sturdy figure attested.
"All righty now, what's the problem with this here man, Vernon?" asked the sheriff. I've got him in interrogation room 1, if you'll come along."
"Vernon, you watch yourself way too much television. We ain't got but 1 interrogation room, so what's the point of numbering it? Not to mention, it's also the break room and the place we store stuff we ain't using. So don't go getting bigger than your britches, hear me now?"
"Yeah, sure, Sheriff,"
Vernon said as he fell in behind his boss. The interrogation/break/storeroom was
just down the hall from the sheriff's office, its door standing open in the silent police station. Christmas Day in Van Buren County was generally quiet. The sheriff had thoughtfully let his other 3 officers off to spend the day with their families, leaving only a skeleton crew of himself and Vernon, with Ida Mae Benson to answer the phones. Inside the room, a man sat at a single long wooden table. A creased paper bag sat in front of him, its top folded over and held shut with a pair of clothespins. "Merry Christmas!" boomed the sheriff. The man jumped, his pale face going even whiter.
Yes," he said. "Merry Christmas to you, too."
He reached toward the paper bag, but stopped just short of touching it.
"Are you Sheriff Williamson?"
"I am indeed," said the sheriff, as he settled himself in the chair across from the man. "What can I do for you? Vernon, go get us some of Ida Mae's coffee, will you?" Vernon did so without hesitation. The man gave a weak smile.
It's kind of a strange thing, Sheriff. I'm not really sure there's anything you can do, but it's something I thought you should know about. Well, let me just tell you about it, and maybe you can figure it out, okay?"
"That will work just fine, I believe." Vernon appeared with 2 mismatched mugs that steamed faintly. He set one down in front of each man and sat down beside the sheriff. A tablet and ink pen appeared from his pocket.
"Well," the man began, "my name is Jeremiah Perkins. Call me Jerry. You don't know me, probably, but my people are all from this area."
Perkins, the sheriff said as he poured sugar into his coffee. "There's some Perkins up in Solemn Holler. That your folks?"
Jerry nodded. "Yes, sir. Me and my 12 brothers and sisters was raised up there until our mama died. Most of us went off to Nashville. Some are in Knoxville, and a couple went over to Gatlinburg. Nobody left in the old home place now since Aunt Clytie, our mama's sister, passed. Our pa died last summer after being sick for the longest time."
Sheriff Williamson sipped his coffee for a moment, then snapped his fingers. "Sure, Roscoe Perkins, that your pa?"
"He was."
Jerry reached for the sugar pack and poured some into his coffee. His hand shook so hard most of the sugar landed on the table, sparkling like snow against the dark wood.
Pa was a hard man, Sheriff. That's the main reason all us kids left as soon as Mama died. We didn't want to stay around him any longer than we had to. Aunt Clytie stayed on, though. She came to stay when our Mama first got married to Pa and never left. I guess 'cause Mama kept having us young'uns, one right after another. Aunt Clytie loved Mama so much, and, well, that wasn't the only reason she stayed, I think. Like I said, Pa was a hard man. He wasn't real good to any of us kids, but he was way worse to Mama. Aunt Clytie tried to make her leave him many a time. I heard her my own self, but all Mama would say was, "Till death do us part, that's what the good book says." I reckon she must have been some kind of angel, our Ma.
Jerry wiped a tear from his eye. Sheriff Williamson nodded. "Some folks have hard lives, especially them that live up in the mountains, that's for sure. Good thing you and yours was able to get out."
"That was Aunt Clytie again," Jerry said. "She scrimped and saved and sent us away to stay with relatives, like I said, soon as Mama died. Aunt Clytie stayed on, though, 'cause Pa got sick right after we all left. She wrote us that he'd got the cancer and had to keep having surgeries to take stuff off. First his tongue. That was from the chewing tobacco, Clytie said. And then his right arm. And then his left leg. Well, you get the picture, right, Sheriff?"
Cancer is a terrible thing, the sheriff agreed. It was pure kindness of your aunt to stay on and take care of your pa like that, especially since she wasn't no blood relation and all. And since she'd been trying almost from the day of their wedding to get Mama to leave Pa, Jerry said again. He stirred his coffee absently as he stared into space. We was all surprised she stayed on, to be honest. Aunt Clytie and Pa, well, they were like oil and water. Pa would hit Mama all the time, and us kids when he could catch us, but he never dared raise a hand nor lay a finger on Aunt Clytie. She always said it was 'cause she had the power. You heard about the power, Sheriff? I've heard tell of such, said the sheriff judiciously. He leaned back in his chair, which creaked ominously under the strain. Can't say as I believe it, though. Not in these days of satellites and computers and such. The old folks now, some of them still think a body can cast a spell on them, hit 'em with the evil eye, curse their fields, make their chickens stop laying eggs. That's the sort of power you mean? Jerry nodded several times. His pallor had gone away, and he even managed a kind of a laugh. The way you say it, Sheriff, it sure does sound silly. I think, well, let me just tell you what happened. Pa died last summer, and some of us came up for the funeral. It was a closed casket, 'cause there wasn't much left of Pa after the cancer. Why, his casket wasn't any bigger than a child's. That didn't seem right to me. I'm nearly 6'3", and Pa was taller than me. But Aunt Clytie said he'd just been ate up by the cancer, and she didn't want none of us to see him. Not that any of us would have cared. We all loved our mama, and we loved Aunt Clytie too, but Pa wasn't one who asked for or got any love. If that doesn't sound too awful to you. Considering what you told me, I'm not surprised, the sheriff said. Well then, Jerry took a sip of coffee and went on. Aunt Clytie seemed all right at Pa's funeral in July, but she came down with the flu in September. Next thing we knew, she was in the hospital over at the county seat. We all took turns visiting her, but she just wasted away, seemed like. We buried her in the family plot 2 days ago, right next to Mama. I'm sorry for your loss, especially coming like it did so close to Christmas and all. The sheriff punched Vernon in the ribs. Yes, sir, sorry for your loss, the deputy sputtered. Well, Jerry nodded gratefully and continued. Every one of us kids came up for the funeral, some bringing their own kids, too. Why, that old house of ours is packed to the rafters this very minute, let me tell you. We all bought groceries and presents for the kids, 'cause we knew we'd be up here for Christmas and stood a good chance of getting snowed in at that. And some of the young'uns, the nieces and nephews, well, they'd all heard us talking about what a good cook Aunt Clytie was and how she'd can vegetables from the garden every summer, and we'd live off them cans of stuff all winter long. Okra and tomatoes and venison stew and chicken and dumplings and, well, all kinds of things. And this morning, my sister Bertha Lee got to nosing around in the pantry and down in the root cellar, and she come across just rows and rows of canning jars. None of us thought Aunt Clytie would have had time to do any canning this past summer, what with nursing Pa and all, but she had. And we broke out quite a few of 'em. Had us a big old-time dinner with biscuits and cornbread and stuff from the jars. Eating her food again, well, it seemed almost like Aunt Clytie was still there with us. Nothing better than home canned and home cooking, Sheriff said. Yes, sir, that's what we told the little ones. Everybody gobbled up everything, and there's a bunch of us here. So when we started running low, me and Bertha Lee went back down to the cellar for more. I'll be honest, Sheriff, I was on the lookout for some of Aunt Clytie's canned peaches. Lord, I loved them when I was little. All right, then, said the sheriff. So you all had some home cooking. But I confess, Mr. Perkins, I'm not seeing what your problem might be. Jerry Perkins eyed the paper bag and gulped, hard enough for the other two to hear. Well, we found some jars way in the back of the root cellar, kind of hidden behind an old bedspread hanging from the wall. We grabbed them up and took them all upstairs. Right beside them was a little old notebook like we had back in school. You know, the kind ruled with that kind of black and white cardboard cover? I know. Sheriff Williamson was thinking his Christmas dinner was getting colder and colder, but he was as patient as he was kind. Well, said Jerry, while Bertha Lee was opening lids and putting stuff from the jars into pots on the wood stove, I sat down and started to read the notebook. Sheriff, I don't know if my Aunt Clytie might not have lost her mind there toward the end. After all, she'd had a hard life, working to take care of us all and trying to keep Pa from hurting us and Mama. But what I read there, well, I just don't know. I'd like to see that notebook, Miss Perkins. Jerry shook his head. No, sir. That is one thing you cannot do. After I read it, I took all the stuff on the stove and dumped it out back on the rubbish heap, and then I burned that notebook in the stove. Only thing I kept was these 2 jars in this here bag. Well then, can you tell me what was in the notebook, son? Asked the sheriff. I can, but I don't believe it. I don't believe Aunt Clytie would have done such a thing. What kind of thing, son? Jerry reached for the paper bag and unclipped the 2 clothespins. He laid them carefully on the table and began to unroll the top of the bag. Inside were 2 canning jars, their lids rusty from damp. One contained strips of meat in a thick, pale gravy. The other held what looked like a pair of bony pig's feet pickled in brine. Aunt Clytie said in her notebook that she meant Pa to pay for what he'd done to Mama, Jerry said softly. She said he was nothing but evil and full of sin and didn't deserve to live. But she said he shouldn't ought to die fast. He should suffer and linger in pain, the way he'd made Mama linger in pain all the years she lived with him. So Aunt Clytie... Jerry shoved the jar containing the misshapen pig's feet closer to the sheriff. So she started cutting on Pa. At least, that's what she said in her notebook. He got raging drunk on homebrew one night, and she tied him down to the bed and cut out his tongue. She said that was so he couldn't tell no one. Jerry's face had regained the lost pallor. It looked as white as the paper napkin crumpled in his trembling hand. After that, she said it got easier. She'd give him homebrew, get him drunk, and cut off something else until he ended up helpless in the bed. That was why, when we all came for his funeral last summer, there wasn't much left to bury. Aunt Clytie had been whittling away at Pa until he wasn't no bigger than a child, said Jerry Perkins softly. And that wasn't the worst of it. What could be worse than that? Asked the sheriff. He glanced at Vernon, who'd stopped writing in his pad and had gone a pale green color with just a hint of lavender. Pa didn't deserve to eat good, clean food from God's earth, Aunt Clytie said in that little old notebook, Jerry said. All he deserved to eat was trash, 'cause that's all he was. Nothing but trash and rubbish. So the meat she cut off of Pa? Well, she said she fed it right back to him. Sheriff Williamson cleared his throat. He'd forgotten all about his Christmas dinner getting cold on his desk. Now, son, I think you've got the wrong end of the stick here, don't you? You're just missing your aunt and sad about her death. I'm sure you're still feeling some anger towards your pa. That's all this is. Don't you think so, Vernon?" He turned toward his deputy. Vernon had laid down his pad and pen and was examining the jar nearest him. Sheriff, you ever seen a tattoo on a pig's foot before? A heart with an arrow through it? That can't be right, can it, Sheriff? Can it? That just can't be right.
Ectoplasm 3, composed and performed by Tim Parker.
Sinister Minutes is presented by Kurt Homan and Tim Parker. The musical score was composed and performed by Tim Parker. Our production team consists of Kurt Homan and Tim Parker. On behalf of everyone here at the Sinister Minutes podcast, namely Kurt Homan and Tim Parker, we thank you for listening, for joining us as we explore all the ways in which we are not okay. This audio program is copyright by Kurt Homan and Tim Parker under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives license.